and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. Boy, we've got a lot to cover this morning. I also want to highlight that a little bit later on, you may recall early on the program, a few months ago, we talked with Diana Morella and Elena Eaton about the golf tournament coming up, and it's right around the corner. Summer's going very, very quickly. It's on Monday, July 31st, but registration is July 16th. So as a reminder, we're going to play that interview a little bit later on, and the golf tournament is for the Society of Women Engineers. So that's coming up in a little bit. We're going to talk about cocaine in the White House. We're going to talk a few things here about the Biden administration. We also have some New York updates, and if we have a chance, we're going to hear from our congressman and a quote that he sent out about some government spending that I think you're going to find very, very interesting. As always, you can contact me if you have any questions, comments, concerns, and or criticisms. I'd love to hear from you. I've been receiving a lot of great emails about suggestions for interviews. I always appreciate that. I can't always guarantee it, but we made that a goal at the beginning of this program. Is if you have someone that you think would be, should be put to the test. That sounds like I'm going to be confrontational. But if there's something going on in your local area and you say, I would love to hear from this person about this issue, their thoughts on it, just let me know. And let me know what the issue is. That would be very helpful as well. Okay, there you go. There's contact info. So, speaking of that, I would like you to ask, we're going to start with this. And I was going to pop it up on the screen because CNN asks, what makes someone feel financially secure and what makes them feel rich? I'm not going to keep that up on the screen very long because apparently CNN thinks that the best thing to do is just have the whole screen taken up by one big ad. So you have to scroll down to see the whole thing. So we'll take that off. But they ask the question, what would make you feel rich? What, and not in the sense of, family and friends and your relationship with God, those type of things, but financially. So they did a survey, and it wasn't actually CNN. It was Bankrate that did this survey, but it was 2,500 U.S. adults that were asked, what would make you feel financially secure? This number blew me away. $233,000 a year just to feel financially secure. So you ask, what would make you feel rich? $483,000. That's when you would feel rich or maybe attain financial freedom. Now, just in case you're not aware, full-time year-round worker back in 2021, the median earning at that time was $56,473. So do you need $233,000 to feel at least financially secure? Maybe you're making that much more. I hope you are. I just thought that those numbers blew me away. And the reason I mention it before we go to break is because we talk so often about government spending, and I mean the tax rate on those, right? But the waste in New York State and the waste at the federal level. So I want to talk about that when we come back, and then after that segment, we're going to be hearing more about the upcoming golf tournament for the Society of Women Engineers. So make sure that you stay tuned. We're just getting started here, but I would love to hear from you. What would make you feel financially secure? And then I think I'll probably more likely hear from you about wasteful New York spending after this. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. We are back with Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. I'm your host, Frank Agam, and this is, Frankly Speaking, arguably the best show on all of television. I did hear a response to what would make you feel financially secure. The first one was, if they made as much money as me. My suggestion is that you set your goals higher, but I appreciate your thoughts and trust in me. So let's talk a little bit about New York, and I'm looking over here at what could potentially be a tech issue, so stay with me for just a second. It'll be fine. You won't even notice it if I catch it correctly. Let me put that contact information up again while I do that. So we talked in the past, one of the probably early days of the program was about, do you remember the Excelsior Pass? The Excelsior Pass was some It was a way to track you. The Excelsior Pass. I think we're back on with audio. It was a way to track you, so you could go to various events throughout New York State. It was, I'm not gonna say a dismal failure, but it never really took off like they thought it would. I know a lot of people downloaded it. Well, the New York Post looked into this, and we talked about it in the past. But what was it that made the cost of the Excelsior Pass skyrocket? Because originally I think we were told it was going to be like $2.5 million to get it off the ground, which is still a lot. And then we heard $17 million. Well, it topped off, hopefully, at $64 million. And what is the overwhelming reason for the cost? Consultants. Millions of New Yorkers recently woke up with a message on their phone from an app you may have forgot you ever downloaded. Because demand, this was a quote. I'd never downloaded the app, so I did not get this message. But it said, because demand for instant access to vaccine records has subsided, the New York State Wallet app will be discontinued on July 28th, 2023. So, okay, you still have time to use it. Did anybody ever use it? I don't recall being in a scenario where people said, hey, could you show us your Excelsior Pass? But just barely 2 years after its launch, the Vaccine Passport Act, a relic of the early COVID, as they put here, police state, was dead. It could have been because generally a cause for celebration for people that were sick of being tracked at that time. But instead of celebrating, it made us cringe. It made us sick to our stomach when we found out $64 million it cost you and I and any taxpayer here in New York. The grotesque government spending should make the blood of every taxpayer boil, says the New York Post, and I could not agree more. They go through the history of it, the Excelsior Pass with Governor Cuomo, and it was unveiled back in May of 2021. So how did we end up spending $64 million on an app that was never successful? I wouldn't say a dismal failure, but never successful. The answer is simple. Taxpayers with no meaningful recourse were the ones footing the bill, so it never mattered. We had no way to stop this. The money just continued flowing as they learned to consultants. It was costing $200,000 a month to keep it up and running. Here's another question for you. I guess today on this Friday edition of Frankly Speaking, I'm going to ask a lot of questions. Did you ever have any experience with the Excelsior Pass? Did you ever use it? Did you ever even download it? When the app was first announced, they said $2.5 million. It's a great deal. We can all then go to events and we'll all be able to prove that we had our vaccine and our boosters. Well, within just a mere couple of months, it skyrocketed to $17 million. Wow. Because they added, as is normally the case with bureaucracy, they added other things. You could use it almost as a driver's license in a way where it would have proof of age, it would have medical records. It, again, to use the term draconian. Until its cancellation, and even though virtually nobody had been using the app, the state had been paying $200,000 a month just to maintain the database of vaccine records. So that's a 25-fold increase from the original plan, the $2.5 million. So where did all the money go? To consulting. After IBM secured a 3-year contract with the state to roll out the app. That's what a Boston consulting group reported. How exactly these mega corporations managed to take up that much of your and my money is now the subject of an investigation by the state Office of the Inspector General. We'll see where that goes. But the New York Post ends on this, and I think it's something, is a great bookend to this piece. If New York wants to stop hemorrhaging residents in droves, it better demonstrate a greater deal of respect for the hard-earned tax dollars it extracts from its citizens. But when you look at the New York State budget, what's a mere $64 million amongst friends for taxpayers that are on the fence of whether or not to stay in the state as we prepare to get rid of our gas ovens and all the other heavy-handedness of Albany as they coddle criminals and tie the hands of police. It's another example of what we're dealing with as New York residents. But we have to take a break. When we come back, we're going to rebroadcast that interview because I want this to be a success. I think it's a great cause. It's the golf tournament that's coming up at the Corning Country Club. The golf tournament itself is not till July 31st, but registration deadline is coming right up on July 16th, and it's for the Society of Women Engineers at the Corning Country Club. You can find out more at twintiers.swe.org, and we're going to go to that interview when we come back. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. This is the M.A. Neal Financial Services section of our program. I'm going to thank our guests because we have an exciting event coming up at the Corning Country Club, your golf tournament. Thanks so much for being in the program.
You're welcome.
So this is the 29th year. That's kind of amazing.
It is a pretty
It's a
exciting-
tradition.
Yes, it is. Yes.
Well, I wanted to specifically talk about the Society of Women Engineers because that's who sponsors us. Tell us a little bit about that organization.
So it started back when there was a gentleman in George Brewster that started. He was in recruiting for women engineering. So
Okay.
the whole scholarship program began when he decided to donate some of the earnings that he received.
Yeah.
And start this scholarship back in 1995. So
Okay.
it's been.
And you've
going
given a
for
lot of
some-
scholarships away through the years.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think last year alone, I read you gave 5 scholarships away. Is that
We
right?
actually go up to 6.
Is that right?
6 $2,000 scholarships.
Well, I want to talk about the golf tournament, but before that, there's probably people wondering, how do they participate in the scholarship? How does a student qualify for that?
Absolutely.
So it's through your local guidance counselor office
Okay.
at your high school. So any senior pursuing a engineering or science related field in higher education, so college, is able to go through their guidance counselor office
Okay.
and apply for the scholarship.
Okay. Now let's talk about the golf tournament because that is raising money towards these scholarships. Is the golf tournament open to anybody?
It is, actually. So a lot of local businesses have participated in the past. We have
Okay.
up to 30 teams that actually
wow.
enter into this. And we have a lot of local businesses. They promote us. They sponsor holes, or they sign teams up,
Okay.
or they actually donate gifts for gift baskets, which all goes back to the scholarships. So it's a good program.
How many people do you think it takes to have an event like this? Do you have volunteers, and I'm sure a lot of planning?
There is.
Yeah, so we have our golf tournament committee. It's about 7 or 8 of us. It depends on the year and availability, of course.
Of course.
And then the day of, we usually have 6 or 7, 8, depending on the amount of teams that we have, volunteers to help with registration, door prize distribution, and just basically the flow of the event itself.
It's got to be a fun day. Do you guys play it?
I do.
Yeah.
I do not. play,
No. How'd you do last year?
Not bad. I'm
Okay,
not
good.
gonna
Good.
disclose my
Oh no,
score.
you don't want to tell anybody.
No.
They'll be gunning for you.
Right?
Yeah, the golf tournament is at the Corning Country Club Monday, July 31st with a 10 a.m. shotgun start. That's captain and crew, right?
Captain.
And registration, though, you're asking people to register by July 16th. How's the easiest way to register?
So there's a website.
Okay.
or
That is
there's
the best one?
Well, not a website, I'm sorry, but you can contact Laura Mahalki.
Okay.
We will provide the number.
I have it right here, as a matter of
Okay.
fact. 607-974-8032.
Great.
Okay. All right. So what's a typical day like? Someone gets out there at 10 and you've got 18 holes. You've got a light lunch, I believe, right? And dinner?
Yes.
Yep, so the day of the event, you basically come, registration starts, I think, as early as 8 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
And you just come, register, you get a door prize ticket, so everyone gets a door prize ticket. And then shotgun starts at 10 a.m. You play your 18 holes. At the turn, there is a light lunch. And then after you're completed your day of golf, there's a dinner that's
Okay.
provided by the country club. And then we also have our award ceremony.
That sounds like a great day.
That's a lot
Well,
of fun.
I've got to take a short break. Can you stay with us?
Absolutely.
All right. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom, and this is the M.A. Neal Financial Services section of our program, and we're talking about the upcoming golf tournament, Monday, July 31st, with a 10 a.m. shotgun start. Registration by July 16th. It's all at the Corning Country Club. I just wanted to touch back on what we began the program with, which is the Society of Women Engineers. What is it that the Society of Women Engineers do? Is it just scholarships, or is there more to it?
So they also have a bunch of outreach events within the local community, promoting females in the engineering field to pursue an engineering field. That goes as low as like elementary schools, doing stuff with those classrooms, just trying to get interest into the field.
Sure. When did you get involved? That's for both of you.
So I've been involved probably 3 years, just helping some of the just local events and mostly the golf tournament, just to help.
Is that your biggest event, you think?
I think so.
I would say so. Locally, yeah.
Locally,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. And do you look forward to the event each year, the golf tournament?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Even though you don't
It's
play?
a lot of fun. I'm the co-chair, so I run the day of.
Oh, okay.
So that's a lot of work itself. So.
Now, a question for anybody that wants to participate. Diana, you were mentioning earlier that you were a ringer and really good when you play, right? You were saying that?
Sure.
So, but is that open to anyone?
It
They
is
don't
open
all have to be
anyone.
pros.
It is. No, you do not have to be pros.
Okay. So anybody, it's just for fun, right?
Yes.
So how can we help? Maybe we're not a golfer. How can we help the event?
You can donate to be a whole sponsor.
Okay.
You can donate prizes for our door prizes or the prizes that we give out for winning teams. Or you can enter a team.
Sure.
And
And you can just donate because it is a great cause,
Absolutely.
right? And I was hoping that you could maybe explain the difference, because there's a standard ticket for your team, but there's also a super ticket. What's the difference?
Well,
So a super ticket basically includes everything that we can offer you as a team. So you obviously get your one captain and crew team. You get 2 mulligans per person.
Oh, good.
You each get a door prize ticket. You get an entry into our raffle that we have for the year. And you also automatically get a whole sponsor.
Okay.
The standard ticket team does not include a whole sponsorship. And it also does not include a raffle ticket for whatever we're offering.
Okay. Great. And that again, Monday, July 31st, 10 a.m. shotgun start. Registration by July 16th. It's due, coming up soon, almost a month away. Corning Country Club. Just before we go, what should people know if they're thinking about playing in the tournament?
it's usually a great day, great turnout, a lot of participation, and good mood. You know, it's just a good day, and supporting the engineers is a great fun, right?
Right. Well, thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
You'll have to tell us how it all went when it's all over, okay?
Absolutely.
All right. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. We are back here with Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV, Big Fox, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. I'm your host, Frank Acom. I wanted to mention this from Congressman Nick Langworthy before we move on to some other issues, specifically about the White House and the cocaine investigation. But Nick Langworthy is doing a great job with this issue, and it's something that should be highlighted. It's a Targeted Violence and Terrorism Prevention Grant Program. And he, along with Representative Jeff Duncan, sent a letter to the Secretary of Homeland Security asking, how is the funding for this program distributed? There seems to be a lot of red flags. They even in the letter highlight the fact that there's been certain or seems to be instances where it targets individuals and groups associated with conservative political ideas and Christianity. That's very troubling. And we've seen things like this in the past where something sounds great, right? Targeted Violence and Terrorism Prevention Grant Program. You say, well, obviously we want to target violence and terrorism. But what are their definitions? What are their criterias? And will they weaponize it for political reasons? Well, yes, most likely they will. So I'm glad that this letter was sent by Congressman Langworthy and Jeff Duncan to the Secretary of Homeland Security. And this is what our Congressman Nick Langworthy had to say about it. Through the TVTP, and that's the Targeted Violence and Terrorism Prevention Grant Program, DHS is targeting individuals and groups associated with conservative political ideas and Christianity rather than focusing on preventing actual acts of violence and terrorism. This practice undermines the fundamental principles of democracy, which rely on the principles of open debate, freedom of expression, and the protection of diverse political ideologies. In a democratic society, it is crucial to foster an environment that encourages robust discourse and the peaceful coexistence of differing viewpoints. And this goes back, and thank you to Congressman Langworthy for bringing that to everyone's attention, because that's something that cannot stand if this has been weaponized for political purposes, which scares you, that it absolutely absolutely has been. If you look at the instances where specifically what they call out, it's troubling. But that's at a time when so many in Washington want to silence people with differing opinions, right? We talked about this I brought it up the other day with Don Lemon saying we can't platform people that essentially he disagrees with. Can't give them a platform, meaning they shouldn't even be allowed to speak. That you can't have the open conversation, you can't have the open debate to get to the bottom of something. It goes back with what we were talking with the former congressman, Joe Semplinsky, just the other day, just yesterday, as a matter of fact. What am I thinking about social media? And that judge who said to the Biden administration, you can't be this heavy-handed telling social media what they can and cannot say. We had that quote from Biden at the time during COVID saying, well, Facebook is killing people, meaning that people posted stuff again that he did not like. And that's not what democracy, this open idea of expression, freedom of speech, that's not what we were founded on. So in this case, if they're using this group, or this funding, to target people that are conservative, that are Christian, that is goes against everything we stand for in this country, and it's wrong. So I'm glad that they wrote the letter, and that's why I wanted to thank them and mention it to you. We are going to talk about cocaine in the White House. Again, a great name for an album or a band. You can take that idea and run with it. $1 million idea. If you heard, they asked, basically, well, let me take a step back, because it was White House Deputy Press Secretary Andrew Bates. He was asked a question, are you willing to say that's not the case, meaning that it doesn't belong to them? And when I say them, it's Hunter Biden or Joe Biden. Are you willing to say that is not the case, that the cocaine does not belong to them? And Bates said, I don't have a response to that because we have to be careful about the Hatch Act. The Hatch Act. Now, if you're not familiar with the Hatch Act, the main provision blocks executive branch employees, quote, from engaging in partisan political activity while on duty in a federal facility or using federal property. So let me ask you the question before we go to break, and when we come back from break, we're going to talk about this and hear from some experts. Would you say that, answering a yes or no, that this belongs to Hunter or Joe Biden, meaning the cocaine, that somehow violates the Hatch Act by the definition I just gave you? Would that be, if he said yes or no, would that be him engaging in a partisan political activity? What is partisan about worrying about safety at the White House? How does something like this even occur in the first place? And then you ask the question, whose is it? That's how you have to track that down. Now, of course, we heard from Politico, and I've heard from other news outlets throughout the last couple of days, oh, we're never going to get to the bottom of it. We're never going to find out whose cocaine that is. Boy, if that doesn't raise a lot of red flags. We'll talk about it. I'd love to have you weigh in on it, so let me put up that contact info real quick before we go to break. And then no. I might be a break ahead. No, I'm not going to go to break. I think I'm doing all right here. All right, let's keep talking about it. Perfect. I forgot I went a little early to that last break. All right, good. So the experts they put a panel together on Fox News. And they asked does this violate the Hatch Act? And by the way, you can still weigh in on it because you're an expert too. But attorney Bradley Moss told Fox News Digital specifically he is, quote, candidly at a loss as to why Mr. Bates believes the Hatch Act is relevant with respect to addressing that question. Quote, again, from attorney Bradley P. Moss, I could envision other legitimate bases for declining to respond, such as respecting the integrity of the ongoing investigation. You hear that a lot. That's a good way to not have to answer. But references to the Hatch Act seem misplaced. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if you're giving, even as deputy press secretary, how are you not prepared for that question? And why would you go to the Hatch Act? Talk about, again, former Congressman Joe Semplinsky was saying yesterday, there's such a lack of transparency in this White House. And public relations says if they're just transparent, saying we're going to do an investigation, we're going to get to the bottom of this. Clearly, there's security cameras everywhere. Clearly, there's a lot of security protocols to get into the White House and in this specific section of the White House. And it will happen to be July 4th weekend, so much different visitors than normal. And so, yeah, we're going to get to the bottom of it, and we'll let you know as soon as we find out. Not start throwing around the Hatch Act like you know nothing about the basic tenets of that act or of the law, but I'll continue. Former Bush administration ethics chief Richard Painter, who actually ran for Congress as a Democrat last cycle, said, quote, he's given lectures at the White House and published articles on the Hatch Act, but the bill does not cover snorting cocaine. Well, fair enough. Yeah, I didn't notice that anywhere in there either. What does the Hatch Act have to do with cocaine? Painter said. This is the most ridiculous invocation of the Hatch Act I've ever heard. Painter added that even if someone on Biden's campaign was high as a kite, the Hatch Act would not cover the cocaine in question. One conservative commentator, Steve Guest, tweeted, odd that Bates pivots to the Hatch Act and doesn't deny the question. Again, going back to the red flag. So many people are going to point to that why would they go to the Hatch Act? Why not just come up with some other clear skirting to answer like you see so many times at press conferences? I mean, that's really, as no matter what level of press secretary you are, that's 101. But then how many people are now saying, on both sides of the aisle, saying, wait a minute, why did they not just say, no, it's not Hunter's or Joe's? I mean, that should be clear, right? Hunter, in his recent troubles, one of the stipulations of his plea deal, which I'm not sure if that's finalized yet, but one of the stipulations was he had to stay clean. So no, it couldn't be Hunter, right? It couldn't be Joe. So why wouldn't you just say no? And then why do you see so many articles saying, we'll never get to the bottom of this huge mystery. We'll never find out who brought cocaine into the White House and left it in a cubbyhole. Never. It's impossible to track that down in the White House with all the security and all the security cameras. Just impossible. That's a bridge too far. Conservative journalist Jerry Dull-Levy quipped that Bates was referring to the famous Hatch Act provision, which doesn't allow to say White House cocaine doesn't belong to the president or his son. Yes, that caveat in the Hatch Act we all forgot about. All right, now I do have to take a quick break, and when we come back a little bit more on this, I do want to hear your takes on it. I'm hoping we have an opportunity. Let me look at the time. I'm hoping we have an opportunity to bring up. Did you see Vice President Harris? And she was at the 2023 Essence Festival of Culture. Vice President Harris has a long history of what they call word salads, which really get confusing what she says, from beginning to end. Just kind of throwing a lot of, she did it during the debate a little bit, throwing around just kind of words in a sentence, and at the end you go, did that answer what I said or no? We have an example of that from the other day, and the reason I bring that up is because there's been a lot of talks about will Gavin Newsom trying to make it not primary Joe Biden, but will they put him in there? And I think the reason why he's been thrown around so much, as again, not to keep bringing up our interview yesterday, but Joe Semplinsky saying that Gavin Newsom looks like the bad guy character you'd want in a Wall Street movie, right? So why is everybody shining on him? Is it because he's giving these speeches and giving interviews with people like Sean Hannity and going to what is not necessarily friendly avenues, trying to spread the word? Or is it because there's no other viable candidate? Harris wasn't, if you recall, wasn't popular when she ran for president. She never got a single vote. She dropped out before a single vote was cast. So, yes, she had that one good debate where she ironically called out her now boss for being essentially racist. But after that, the tables had turned, and you saw examples like this of the word salad. So I know I'm hyping that up, so I better get a chance to make sure that I try to read you that quote. When we come back, we will try, but a few more things about cocaine in the White House, so stay with us. No, 4 months in to Frankly Speaking, I did not think this would be almost a full topic of a program. Cocaine in the White House, I could not have predicted that. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio on beautiful Marcus Street in Corning. I am your host, Frank Acom. We are talking about cocaine in the White House, and this is a very interesting point, and we'll see, it could very well be an astute point from a viewer. The White House cocaine story is a sidetracking story. What are they trying to pull off behind our backs now? Oh, that's interesting. Very interesting. Time will tell on that. But I do have a few more things to report on it. So let's go to the big screen there. So ex-Secret Service agent Bobby McDonald was on Fox News, and he believes that there's the Secret Service has a fairly good idea of who may be involved. Again, I don't think depending on who it is, unless there's some scapegoat that they can find, or it is some staffer that they can blame, or it is actually a staffer, I don't think we'll ever find out whose it was. I think that's why Politico put that article out, to just quiet it. And as I said, I was flipping through this morning, getting ready for the program, and I saw another outlet report that, now they're unlikely to ever find it, but what this former Secret Service agent says is they sweep that area all the time. So they could figure out about what time of day, first of all, then you've got the cameras, of course. So Politico said, people walk by there all the time. That's why we'll never get the real answer. McDonald disagreed with the report, along with the suggestion made by CNN that a member of the public could have left the drugs. He said that public tours use a different entrance than where the cocaine was located, and these cubbies are for specialized tours. Known people who work in and around the White House bring guests in for tours in this location. McDonald said the area would have had lots of foot traffic on Monday through Friday, but it would not over a holiday weekend. He said Secret Service definitely have an idea of who was on the campus. Nobody knows the facility better. They know every nook and cranny of it. Yeah, well, that's, again, if someone can sneak that in and just randomly leave it in a cubbyhole, which seems very strange, it raises bigger questions about national security, about White House security, about the president's security, doesn't it? That's why we should be getting to the bottom of it and putting in protocols so things like this, or God forbid something worse, being left there never happens. And I don't know. I wasn't going to bring this up, but since we're talking about it, and again, to the viewer's point, that is this something to sidetrack us? The only reason I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, I don't disagree with it either, well, that's a political answer, is that not a lot of places are covering it. Yeah, you see a little bit, but as each station continues to say, we'll never get to the bottom of it, that's their way of saying we're done reporting on it, essentially, unless the White House gives us something they want us to tell you. Because if you see a Politico, but I saw it on a major news network that's known to have liberal leanings, once they said we'll never get the culprit, that to me says we're done reporting on it until we get our talking points from the White House, if they want us to mention something, or if they can find someone to pin it on. So just keep that in mind. That's why I don't know if it is a sidetracking. I don't know how good it'll work out, how successful it will be. But this is the last little bit on it. Then I want to mention Kamala Harris and a few more things about President Biden. Same picture, different article. Fox News. Bookies are listing Hunter Biden as the favorite to be the cocaine culprit. This is bookies from out of the country, by the way. This is not something you can go to Vegas to bet on. Hunter Biden is at plus 170, meaning that if you bet $100, you would win 170. Getting, of course, your original 100 back if it turns out he's a wrongdoer. But just so you know that they're having a little fun with it, and this is just a PR. That's why I haven't mentioned the name of the website. They're just trying to get the free publicity from it. And this, again, PR 101. Kansas City Chiefs tight end Travis Kelce follows with plus 800 odds. One of the Jonas Brothers. See, they just threw around a lot of names just to make it, celebrity names, just to try to make it a news story. That's why I wasn't going to mention it, but I guess someone out there is putting money on who could be the culprit. All right, we got to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Oh, let me make sure I'm doing the right break. All right, we're moving fast this morning. Thank you for joining us on Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. Okay, I mentioned earlier Kamala Harris, and this is why I believe it's unfortunate for Harris. Obviously, she wanted at one point in her life to be president. That's why she ran, never getting, during the primaries, never getting a single vote because her campaign didn't go in that direction, but she gets VP, right? Well, normally there'd be talks already of, well, with Biden's health and things like that, will she step in and run, or, after Biden, is she the next? But not in this case, because she hasn't been, in many people's eyes, on both sides, an effective or really visible VP. It almost seems as if the president kind of keeps her behind the scenes, and when given a task, she doesn't seem to handle. What was it, the border that she was supposed to be in charge of at one point? We know that was eventually taken away. I mean, maybe still on paper she's in charge, but she hasn't been an effective VP or really relevant in some ways. I mean, you just don't even think, you don't hear people talking about her. You don't hear her mentioned all that often. And I know in Washington political speak, they'll have to say, oh, she's doing a great job. We stand with her. She's going to obviously be our VP this next go around. She's doing a wonderful job. But there's a reason why she's kept a very few events. And this may be one of the examples. So she was at 2023 Essence Festival of Culture. And the vice president described how she would define culture. And this is a quote. I'm going to try my best, okay? You follow along. Culture is, it is a reflection of our moment and our time, right? And present culture is the way we express how we're feeling about the moment. And we should always find, and we should always find times to express how we feel about the moment. That is a reflection of joy, because it comes in the morning. I'm not done. We have to find ways to also express the way we feel about the moment in terms of just having language and a connection to how people are experiencing life. And I think about it that way too. Of course. Webster's defines culture as, this is why Gavin Newsom's name must be being thrown around so often. One person suggested it reminded them of a 9-year-old reading a book report about a book they never read. And the only one, I don't want to go through a lot of comedy pieces. What do you think? Maybe you thought it was a good definition. I'm not trying to be biased here. It's just, I'm tying it in to the fact that this is why Gavin Newsom's name is being thrown around so much. But one YouTube person said, and I thought this was good, summarizing the quote, Kamala will go down in history as the most quotable woman to even be a woman who makes quotes about quotes a woman might quote. Yeah, that's, again, why Gavin Newsom must be his name being thrown around so much. And again, Biden is running. So that's what makes it all so confusing. As of today, as of July 7th, 2023, it is all confusing. We've got to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. We are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. I'm your host, Frank Acom. It's amazing. This show went very, very quickly. And before, well, two quick things to mention before we wrap up here. There's a really good point being made by Kristen Fleming at the New York Post. And the article is, and I don't have it up on the screen, but the article, if you have time, is called "Joe Biden is a Cruel Hypocrite," about his 4-year-old granddaughter. We're up to 3 today. I'll take that. 3 waves. Okay. Because she talks about, Biden's whole shtick, if you will, is that he's kind of the folksy grandfather, right? And he said on Father's Day that his family is life's greatest blessing and responsibility. And then he goes and talks about his 6 grandchildren. And he said, I'm crazy about them, and I speak to them every single day, not a joke. But according to Ms. Fleming, there is a joke here, and it's a sick one. It's how Biden treats his 7th grandchild, a 4-year-old in Arkansas, who is the Bidens have just cut away from the family tree. We talked about this yesterday with former Congressman Joe Sempolinski, because it obviously doesn't get any coverage outside of perhaps more conservative outlets. Though I believe Joe told us that the New York Times did do a piece on it, which is very surprising. New York Times did a piece on that and recently went after Hochul. Those are 2 things that are kind of surprising in the history of the New York Times. So they basically, what she says is this 4-year-old is apparently a political inconvenience for President Biden. And at the end of the day, Biden is a slick politician wrapped in the costume of a cute grandpa. So you can find that at the New York Post. It's a really good piece. Also, you perhaps heard about this. Border Patrol has released a suspected terrorist after making multiple mistakes. It's, it was a perfect storm of mistakes. So Border Patrol, and listen, Border Patrol doing their job in a bad situation with this administration. But in this case, say multiple mistakes, and they released that suspected terrorist. They have since, just so you know, brought him back into custody. But that goes to show more major concerns about the security at our border, and of course, the, as of now, open porous border. We are out of time. Thank you to our guests. Find out more about the Society of Women Engineers golf tournament coming up on July 31st, but you need to register by July 16th. That's coming right up. I know it's hard to believe, but today's already the 7th. So find out more at twintiers.swe.org. And one other quick reminder before we go, don't forget, if you want to watch the Cardboard Boat Regatta, I think it's really good coverage. That's on today at 10:30 p.m., or you can watch on Sunday at noon. Have a great weekend, everyone. We'll be back Monday morning with Frankly Speaking, starting at 7 a.m. I look forward to it already. See you then.